All right, I'm going to tell you what you guys can do with this now. What you want to do is while we're waiting for everyone to come, I can see there's more people coming. On one side of the paper, I want you to write what, if any, educational goals you have for your child. I don't know if that's like a Pulitzer or a PhD or just get through high school, but if you have educational goals for your child, write that on one side. And on the other side, write any questions you have about the elementary program. Hello, how are you? Have a seat anywhere. What they're doing is on one side of the car, I'm going to call you Anusha because that's your child. Yeah. That's not your name, though. No, Shiva. Okay. Thank you. On one side of the card, I want you to write just educational goals you have for your daughter. And then on the other side, just questions you have about the elementary program. And we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. I'm just giving you a virtual.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
I brought more.
I saw it.
Well, only because I wanted to also for sure let them know like later on we can and then just how this one has an experiment and this one has an experiment. So I just thought, yeah, so that they get that whole like first we get the impression and then we can talk details. Yeah. I don't remember which is in. I think that one's the second one, but I think it's the first one. Nice. You can actually put it back here. Start in just 1 minute. I am going to warn all you guys, we are streaming this because of COVID. There's so many parents at home. So the camera is pointed on me, not you, and Joseph. So, but just so you know that. And when you ask questions, your voice will be on that recording. So if you don't want to do that, you can hold your questions to the end. Welcome. Yeah, I'm going to give her a piece of paper.
So good to see you both here.
So you have to do it too, so that you and Murad can compare notes. So on one side is questions about the elementary program, and the other side is educational goals. All right, Louis, do you want me to give you a thumbs up when we're ready to go? All right. I'm going to grab one of these. Look, I get to be a rock star today because we have new mics. All right, welcome everybody. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to those of you who are here in person. Welcome to those of you who are watching online. This is our Intro to Elementary program, and it's really, really focused and on getting to know what happens in elementary. So the majority of our invitations went to those families whose kids are just about to go into elementary, but it's of course useful for anybody at the school. How we're going to start out is I want you guys to, we're going to go around, I'm going to hand this out. Oh, first I should introduce myself. I'm Maura Joyce. I'm the head of school, as many of you know. And you need to introduce yourself.
I'm Joseph Aiken. I'm the elementary director, so I get to work with the 7 elementary communities that we have at the Post Oak School.
Mm-hmm. What we're going to do to start is I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about your person who's getting ready for the elementary. I'm going to pass the mic. You can answer without the mic because we are streaming this. You can pass it to the next person and just answer it so it's not going into the stream, okay? But tell us who you are, who your children or child is, and then I want you to answer this question. What do you like or love or appreciate about the primary program your child's in right now or the program your child's in right now? Why do you keep investing in them being here? What is it that's working for you? What are they getting out of it? Okay? So any one of those questions. All right? I think, does it matter which one I go to? I think I'm going to walk this over to you. I'm going to put you on the spot.
We can do that.
That's easy to do, and you can start. And again,
The benefits of having faculty
who your
parents.
child is, and then what's working for you? What do you love about primary?
Beautiful. I'm Corey Eckert. I'm the Post Oak School librarian. And I have a 6-year-old, Harlan, who is in Cynthia Blessman's class. And I could say wonderful things about Cynthia for literally an hour. But what I really love about the primary program for Harlan is that he is a little bit of a character, and his years in primary, his teachers have really taken the time to get to know who he is as an individual and really figure out the puzzle of what works for him educationally and socially and emotionally, and really meet him where he is and help him thrive in all of those ways, even when it wasn't what one might have expected. So I really appreciate how seen my child is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anita Taj, and I am an upper L teacher here at the Post Oak School. Murad and I, we have a daughter, 5.5, Novi, and she is in Tamara Townsend's class. What I love about the program, if you know Novi, you know she's assertive, and so it's just how, she's really independent in the classroom now. We see her being a role model. I think we love how her class and primary program, they celebrate her culture and who she is. Do you have anything to add?
The way Tamara Townsend's class, and I believe every other primary class, is designed to give liberty to kids to choose what they want to do on a certain or on a particular day, and that's what I think is improving my daughter's decision-making skills for her. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Haley Stewmaker, and we are looking at Post Oak for our kids. And so our oldest is 4, and so she would be going into primary, but we're also really wanting her to be here through elementary. So we are happy to just be hearing what that's all about and what that would be like.
Hello.
Good morning. I'm Nilu Chow. My daughter's Vita, and she's 6 in Peggy Laro's class. And for us, or for me, it was a process of elimination. So, I did a lot of Mommy and Me when she was young, and I just did not like the way my daughter was approached. It was very, sit down, don't move. And in a lot of open homes, people told me just strange things, like, who do you want your daughter to marry was one thing somebody said, and nothing like that has happened here. I love the way people speak to her. I love the way that she's seen as an equal. I love the surprises that I get day to day, like the other day she's telling me that she's doing a research project, and I had to just kind of clean my ears and say, what? It's interesting. I thought that was fascinating. Somebody so young would be given that task. So there's a lot. I could go on and on. And I'm just, thankful for all of you for what you're doing here. Good job.
Hi, my name is Shmaila Maradia. My daughter is Safa, she's 6, and she's in Peggy Lara's class right now. What I like about the primary program and just the school overall is it really supports the child. Safa actually is very sensitive to change, and whether it was YCC or whether moving up to primary, like through it all, she was supported, she was held. It was the teachers, the administrator, everyone gave her a chance. They took her and they took the time to take care of her needs. And that has really helped her with her self-confidence. And that's what I really like about this school.
Hi, I'm Josh Solera. I have 3 children as of 10 days ago. My son Zachary, who's 6 in Cynthia Blessman's class. My daughter, who is coming up on 2. She is in Miss Rebecca's class. And then my new daughter, who's 10 days old, who, as you said, got in her application before the deadline. So hopefully we'll be starting sometime in 23. What I've loved about primary is watching how Zachary just loves learning. There was a volunteer day last year in the fall. Some of you may have been there, where we were decorating bags for kids who were getting lunches in brown bags, and literally the instructions were, here's some markers, write in color, do what you want. And I was sitting next to him, and the first thing he wrote over and over again was, I love school. And trust me, that was not the case for me when I was 6 years old. And he just loves coming here. He loves his friends, he loves learning, and he just really enjoys it. And so I've been very grateful for that.
Hi, I'm Shiva, Anusha's mom, and she's in Cynthia class. And she's happy in this school, and I think they teach her to be more independent, responsible. I like to support her and celebrate her culture. And I'm from Iran, and I see yesterday she paint Iran flag, and she was happy about that. So, and I'm happy for her.
Oh, sorry, I missed the prompt, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tell us who you are, who your child is, and then we were just talking about, are you currently enrolled or no?
We will be starting in April, so
Okay,
not.
so just tell us who you are and
Oh,
who your
okay.
child is. That'd be great.
My name is Ina, and my son Izan will be starting in YCC in April.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you guys for sharing all that. We're going to let this class pass by. We thank you, lower elementary students, for being so super quiet. Awesome. So these are such great things that you shared with us. And the good news is that these same things that you value carry over into the elementary. They will be the experience of these children, right? So they'll still continue to work and become, and their individual personhood will be honored, right? The teachers will work along with the whole community to meet their social, emotional, and academic needs. Your child will very much be seen in elementary as well. That independence that several of you mentioned, that continues in the elementary. Being able to be a role model, celebrating culture, that continues in the elementary. Choosing what they want to do, right? So improving that decision-making skills. Loving, you talked about loving the way they're spoken to. They are spoken to as individual people and expected to, seen as an equal and part of the community. I love that, loves the surprises. Boy, research projects is just starting because that's all they do in elementary. Lots and lots of research projects. We support the child through that transition, as somebody brought up, so supported through that transition. The wonderful thing about the transition to elementary is the biggest supporters will be the other students. They'll be the ones who mentor your student so that they have a really great transition. Their needs will be cared for, not just by the teachers, but by everyone else. They still love learning. They really love their friends and they love to learn. They become responsible It's a happy place to be. Our elementary children really do love coming to school every day just as much. Here is the biggest difference that you're going to see between primary and elementary. It's your child. This is the biggest difference that you're going to see, and you've probably started to see those changes. And so I'm going to ask Joseph to talk about what that looks like. All of a sudden, your child makes a big jump after those first 5 years. And I like to think, can I do my caterpillar butterfly piece?
Sure.
I like to think of it as the caterpillar to butterfly. Your baby is 10 days old. They kind of come out like a caterpillar, right? They're all shrivelly and small, and then they grow, and then they learn how to walk and talk. And by like 5.5, oh, they're beautiful butterflies. They're practically perfect in so many ways. They're just lovely human beings. And wham, they become a caterpillar again, right? So we'll talk about even physically they look like a caterpillar a little bit. Their legs get longer than their bodies, and their hair gets stringy. And then they go and they grow, and they're, Anita teaches upper L, and about 11, they're just practically perfect in so many ways, a big, beautiful butterfly, and then wham, adolescence hits, and they go back to the caterpillar phase, and so it goes like this. And I'll let Joseph talk about some of those changes that happens when they get ready for elementary.
So your children have all been in the first plane of development, which is the Children's House from 0 to 6 years old. Now your children for elementary enter into the second plane of development that Maria Montessori describes. And one of the changes, there's the psychological changes, and then there's certainly the physical changes that Maura was just speaking to. Your child starts to be increasingly more like sturdy and like robust. Also, their skeleton grows. And the children are all noticing this. Their teeth are falling out, which is a sign that they're getting prepared to be able to move into that next phase. Their feet are growing, their legs are growing longer. These are all physical signs that the child is preparing to be able to move further away from their family unit. And as such, they start to become more interested in their friends. And that's also when you see the social gregariousness. They still like to venture out, or what they'll start to do is venture out further and further away from the family unit, and then always return to the safety of home to be able to process and to be able to talk with you. But as they grow, these are signs that they're ready to be able to move out further and further. And it's also seen in their physical robustness and also in their athleticism. Let's see. In Children's House, Maria Montessori identified 11 sensitive periods. There were movement, language, order, math, reading, grace, and courtesy. For the second plane, Maria Montessori identified 2. There was imagination, and then there was also culture. Children of the second plane are almost like anthropologists in the way that they like to study their social interactions around them and the people around them. And that becomes incredibly important in terms of just the social dynamism that's being explored in the classroom, and also their researches. Also their imagination. There's certainly a lot of just brain changes happen, but a lot that occurs is within the temporal lobes and their understanding of time. This now becomes a period in your child's life where they're able to reflect on the past, think towards the future, and also do that in comparison to the present moment. So this is when we start to be able to talk more about time telling, and it's also when we really do explore history, the history of the universe, of our planets, of our solar system, and also of humans, plants, and animals. And that's all possible because of the child's development of the imagination. In Children's House, their imagination has been pretty much, I think they call it reproductive in terms of looking at some of the different nomenclature. They're tracing and reproducing the shape of a geometric shape, a circle, a square, a triangle. In elementary, they start to have constructive imagination, where they're actually putting together different links and concepts. And so we're always wondering out loud. This is a huge age of wonder. Let's see. And whenever there will be a chance later on today, if you'd like to be able to observe some of the classrooms, but within the classroom of an elementary setting, there are all sorts of different types of presentations. And they're usually set up so that they're appealing to this imaginative quality that your child has. There are charts, there are experiments, and always lots and lots of stories. We're building upon that spoken language that the Children's House or the primary guides have set over this 3-year period. Really, as Post Oak Elementary guides, as Anita is, we get to stand on the shoulders of the work that the children or the primary guides have done with your children. Let's see. Socially, like I said before, friends become increasingly more and more important. This is a socially gregarious time, but that doesn't mean that the children have, sometimes they call this the age of rudeness. It's not necessarily the age of rudeness, but they have very, very raw social skills. And so really the period of time, the 6 years of elementary from 6 to 12, provides ample opportunity for us to kind of sand away kind of the rough stone that is those social skills. And day to day, that's what the children are able to work with as they partner with their friends and their fellow community members to be able to do work, to be able to solve problems. Let's
Some
see.
of that age of rudeness we just call filterless. I always like to give the example of, yeah, they're filterless because when I used to teach lower elementary, the children would just come up to me and say, "Why are your teeth so yellow?" Right? They're not doing it to be mean. They're actually asking a question. And so we teach them things like, oh, some people that might consider that, a personal question that you may not, you can wonder that, but that might be better to stay in your head and not come out of your mouth. But they do those things. A lot of, oops, I'm not using my mic, hang on. Another great example of that is just when two children, so if Corey comes into my classroom and I say, "Why did you wear that shirt?" And then Corey goes home and says, "Maura doesn't like me." And you say, "What? Maura doesn't like me." "Well, how do you know that?" "Well, she doesn't like the clothes I wear." She goes, "Well, how do you know that?" "What did she say?" "She said, 'Why did you wear that shirt?'" Right? And so they're still working those things out. So you hear lots and lots of social stuff all the time come up. And that's why Joseph mentioned, like, we work on just kind of smoothing over those edges because a lot of it is unintentional curiosity that comes out in an interesting way.
And that's the difference, too, between the grace and courtesy of primary versus elementary. In primary, it would have been a very, very intentional lesson on how they care for their body, blowing their nose. Here, like Maura says, it just comes up in that moment. They may come to you and they may talk about something that's on your face, which they've done with me all the time, and I'll say, that's what you call a blemish. Or they'll be having another interaction with a friend, and so you're able to address it in that moment about how you can offer somebody advice. It's like, "I noticed something about your work. Would you like to hear my observation?" And so then you start to have those grace and courtesy lessons there, helping them be able to work on those social interactions with one another. So it's given in a very, very fluid manner, and there's so many opportunities for it. Let's see, what else? And so whenever you look inside the Montessori environment, there are many materials that will be familiar to your child from the Children's House. They are the same beads with their shape, color, and size that your child has worked with since they were very, very young. There's still the short chains and the long chains and the cubes, the binomial cubes. So when your child comes into an elementary environment, they will recognize many materials, and then at the same time, there will be many, many materials that are new to them. And we're able to work with children wherever they are in their reading or their writing fluidity. Let's see. The presentations are given in a small group format, so usually around 3 to 5 children. And the teacher presents from what we call, I wish I had my albums, but any elementary trained guide, Maura and myself included, we went to our training. And in our training, we developed our curriculum, which was a series of albums for history, geography, biology, botany, geometry, mathematics, art, and music. And that's what the guides use to be able to inform themselves for the presentations that they're presenting. And each day within a Montessori environment, they're teaching from all these different album areas. So as your child is just moving through the room, they're hearing these discussions about art or geometry or about history. The teachers set the tone for each year by giving 5 great lessons. And the 5 great lessons, the first one is about the creation of of the universe, the development of different states of matter, solids, liquids, gases. That starts the first day or within the first week that your child is in the classroom. And it sets the tone for all future discussions. And that's what ties together all the different presentations. That's what interconnects them, is being able to reference back to these 5 great lessons. There's the creation of the universe, the development of the planets. Then we go into the development of life on our planet. So we talk about the movement from unicellular to multicellular organisms. And then also we explore the roles that humans have had upon our planet. So there's a human timeline 1 and 2. And maybe as we look out in the rooms later on, you'll be able to see these long illustrated scrolls that are rolled out. And that's what the children and the guides are always coming back to discuss animals, inventions, humans. Research, research, research.
Should we give them a lesson?
Oh, sure, please. Do you have one prepared?
I do. So we want to give you an example of how a lesson, how we tune into that imagination and then we set the stage. So one of the things that Montessori children in my many, many years, and I taught through elementary and I taught adolescence as well, is I've never heard this statement from a student in a Montessori classroom. Why do I have to learn this? And they never ask that question because there isn't a lesson that we present that doesn't have a connection to what they're doing, who they are, them being just people on this planet. And so I'll give you a great example of 1, how we use their imagination, and 2, how we give that context and what that does. Now this one, I definitely have to get rid of this microphone. So I don't know if you want to hold it for me.
I'll hold it.
Actually, I'll hold it when I do the walk around because I do want to show them this. So I'm going to show you, this is called the leaf chart. There are many leaf charts. This is one of the leaf charts. So you can kind of see that. Kind of see this funny drawing.
And so this would be connected with botany.
So this is connected, yeah, this is connected with botany, right. So this is a leaf chart, and I'm going to tell you the story the way that I would tell it to children. And I am rusty, because the last time I was in an elementary classroom was a long time ago, but they humor me and let me, as head of school, give a lesson every year in this presentation. So here we go, right? And I can remember my roots. All right, I'm going to let you hold that kind of close to me. So you guys have seen in our classroom, we have lots of plants. And did you know that plants drink with their feet and eat with their heads? What I mean by that is this. You may know that plants drink with their feet because you've watered plants in your other classroom, right? And where do you put that water? Does anybody remember where you put that water? Say that again. Near the roots, right? We put it near into the plant near the dirt. And so underneath that dirt are the roots, and the roots take up the water, all right? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about the leaves, right? Imagine that this is the inside of a leaf, right? Because the leaf has a job, and the job of the leaf is to make the food for the plant. That's the job of the leaf, to make the food for the plant. So back down here you can see there's a little elevator. Well, that's because that water that you put down at the roots, that water goes all the way up through the plant up to the leaf. So it takes some water in. The other thing about the leaf is that there are tiny, tiny holes in each leaf that you see. Tiny holes, which we call stomata, right? And stomata, it comes from a word that means mouth, little mouth. And the leaf takes in air through that little hole, takes in air. And it takes in something called carbon dioxide, all right? So it takes water from the roots, carbon dioxide from the air, and it mixes it up in a big pot, right? And the sun acts like a giant oven. And so this mixture, they put in the oven, and out comes food for the plant. And then it goes back down to all the other parts of the plant and feeds the plant. Now, when they mix this up and they cook it, there's some of the air left over called oxygen, and the plant just lets that go out through those same holes, right? So water, carbon dioxide, they mix it up. The sun bakes it, becomes food for the plant, and that's how it foods the plant, and then it gives out some of the oxygen, okay? This is the job of the leaf. Okay, so the children know that there are not little green men inside of leaves. They know that, right? But I'm telling them a story, right? Now, what is it that I just described to them? What process? Photosynthesis, right? And we'll tell them that word later. But right now, we want them to understand what the job of the leaf is. And boy, do they understand what the job of the leaf is. Is he okay? I think he's okay. I don't know if that was his foot or his head, right? They understand what the job of the leaf is, so much so that they go out on the playground and become the defender of the leaves, right? Don't pull that leaf off of that tree. It is making food for that plant. That's like taking my lunch away from me, right? And then they understand that so that when we go back and we go into more detail, they understand why they're learning it, right? Now, these kids never forget this simple process. I will tell you, I wasn't a scientist in my educational career. When I saw this lesson, I was like, really? That's as simple as it is? If I had learned that way back when, I might have paid attention in biology. But it's an impression that really, really gets them. I'm going to show you a couple other things. Here's another fun chart. I'll walk around with this one too. Can you guys see this one? So this one, you can see we talk about the leaves being the worshipers of the sun, right? Because leaves will find the sun. Why? Because they need the oven to make the food. You know, they need the sun to make the food. And there's even an experiment that goes with this, a little experiment where we'll take a plant and they'll put it next to a window, and then they'll turn the plant around the next day, and guess what the leaves all do? They go and find the sun again, right? They'll go to the sunny spot. So that's a fun one to do. We talk about how the sun will also pull water out of the leaves. So not only is there the oxygen coming out of the leaves, but also there's some moisture that comes out of the leaves when the leaves are broad. Another experiment, we'll just put a little bag over part of the plant and put a rubber band around it for a half a day. Guess what happens? The inside of the bag fills up with water so that they can see that. We can take out a microscope and have them put a leaf under the microscope and look at the teeny tiny holes, and you can see them. So they get to experiment with that. And then later, all these words, the word photosynthesis, that comes in later. All of the different minerals, carbon dioxide and oxygen we can talk about later. The fact that water has molecules later. We get into the details, but once we give them the reason why, then they're interested in the details. Then they want to know what the details are, right? But we start with a story. My favorite summary of Montessori Elementary was in one of the first observations I had ever done. I was in a classroom for the first time maybe, but one of the first times I was ever in a classroom. I was sitting in there and observing, and I was taking notes, and a teacher was setting up a lesson. And a child walks by, an older child, looks at the 4 children getting ready for that lesson and says, "Oh, this is a great one. It has a story," and walks away, right? And so the kids are like, "Oh, it has a story," right? That's what they're drawn to. That's what they love. And that's what motivates them to keep learning. So Joseph talked about that big first great lesson in cosmic education that we keep coming back to that, because as they know, as they're part of the universe, part of the earth, part of humankind, anytime we take anything out to study, we can do that. You know, oh, triangles. Why are we studying triangles? Well, look up. Look at every corner of this building, right? If we didn't know about triangles, triangles are the constructor. They make things strong. They're used for everything. And so we keep making those connections so that they love learning, so that they really want to come to school every day and find out what those new connections are. All right. So let's just stop there and see if anybody has questions before we move forward.
So is this the style of presentations that's used in the classroom, like the boards? Those are like the exact same.
So within our trainings as well, in terms of, we've also created the albums, but then we also create a series of charts. And so there's the work of water, the work of wind, there's the work of plants, there's the relationship between the sun and the earth. And so there's probably over 100 of these visual aids or visual charts that are contained within each elementary classroom for both first through third grade and also fourth through sixth grade, or 6 to 9 and 9 to 12. Then there's also, you'll see large scrolls, which are our timelines. There are also some smaller charts that we create primarily for language and to be able to explore language families. There's an extensive amount of nomenclature material that is prepared because elementary is all about reading. So the nomenclature that you observe within the primary just continues to build and to build and build. So we're always supplying, more talked with you about the introduction of like the leaf. And she talked about photosynthesis. From there, you go into the type of veination. So you go into parallel veins or reticulate veins. You start to talk about different, the lamina. You start to talk about leaf shapes. So you're building upon that language all the time. That's another material that's made. And then there's a lot of experiments, which Maura has alluded to, but then we tie that in with geography in our physical science program too. So there's test tubes and beakers that are always being pulled out as well that accompany a number of these stories.
Very hands-on. There's also materials that are manufactured and all over the shelves, but this is the type of thing.
And I've had children too who were new to the room. The charts are usually kept in a chart box, and so after part of any presentation too that a child receives within a Montessori classroom is there's 3 different stages. There's the act of collecting your materials, the act of working with the materials, and then the act of putting them away. And the child is engaged with each step of that, so they know where to be able to locate these charts. But I had a child in the classroom who saw children working with this, and then just was like moving around with the chart, just saying like, what is this? Like, who can tell me what is this about? And when that happens, it's like, oh, we do know something about that. You sit down and you're able to give that story or that key right at that moment to the child so that you want to be able to work with that wonder that they're having. And that's why in the classroom too, we're always talking about like, I wonder how plants communicate with one another. That they are ready to be pollinated. I wonder if plants can communicate with insects that pollinate them, that they are ready. I wonder, so you're just always talking out loud. I wonder how much marble or how much concrete has been used by humans throughout the course of their building projects. We just do that a lot. We wonder and wonder and wonder, and we talk and talk and talk. And then we connect them with world books and different resources and that's a really important key as well, is starting to be able to identify what are the resources that we all have at our hands. Is it going to another child? Is it going to an adult? Is it using our written resources, libraries within our circulating library? And so that's what you can see will just increase too over the 6-year period of elementary, and certainly into middle school and high school.
Ready to move up. So yesterday, a student who is ready to move, is in his last year of primary and is about to move up to elementary, brought me a drawing of a black widow spider and said, I need information about this spider. Oh my goodness. I need information about this spider. I drew it, and I need a book about it. And so he wondered about a black widow. He drew a black widow, and then he brought the black widow drawing to the library to then get some more information from me about it. So he's practicing that readiness skill of wondering about something and coming to find the right resource for it.
Yeah, that's something that primary has set the children up for incredibly, is just being able to do that type of research. And then within elementary, they start to work too on their projects collaboratively. So, say the three of you are interested in spiders. We now have to figure out what is a way that each of you can contribute to this spider report. And that may be where you start to look at the head and the abdomen or the number of legs, and you start to divide up. It's like, oh, maybe I wonder if there's a pattern that we can discover with the legs of a spider. Who is interested in seeing if they can identify that pattern? So you write about the legs, you write about the abdomen, you might write about the head or the spinnerets, and that's the way that it's able to build. Did you have something you wanted to add?
If you want to add a little bit about going out,
Oh, yeah.
because that's always a fun part.
Yeah. Anita's keeping me honest with something that's a part of the elementary curriculum that's called the Going Out program. And really, this is tied to your child's ability to be able to start to move further away. Going outs are opportunities for the children to be able to interact with broader members of society outside their immediate community. So you can have going outs on campus, where maybe they're going to another classroom, they prepare for this for a presentation. It also may be where within the classrooms and even our libraries, we've got finite materials. We want the children to hit that cap so that they may have to go out further to be able to find the information, if that's going to a library or if it's going to a museum. I once had some children who they were interested in walruses, and a boy had a dream and a wish. He was like, I can almost picture when I close my eyes, reaching out and feeling the breath of a sea lion on my hand. He wrote about sea lions with his friends. We of course pulled out the timeline of life and looked at nature's experiment for when we first had those mammals that returned to the water and became the relatives of seals. But then as his going out, he went to SeaWorld. And he was able to arrange a time, and he was able to go and see the sea lions there, and he experienced this moment where he was able to reach out his hand close to a sea lion. But that's some of the ways that going outs, there are many different iterations of them, but it's having the child be able to interact with a small group of people and move out into society to be able to explore further, to wonder.
I think the difference is, so it sounds like a field trip, right? But a field trip is often planned by the adult for the entire class, and a going out is planned by the student in a small group with a direct purpose. When I did most of my elementary teaching, I was in the Washington, D.C. area, and I had a group of students who were studying transportation, and they were studying they were creating a timeline of transportation. And we went into the Museum of American History. We drove down. We had a little mini bus, just like we have here, and we drove down to the transportation hall at the Museum of American History at the Smithsonian. And our group had notebooks and pencils and drawing paper, and they went and they sat in front of a canoe, and they were drawing and they were doing this, and they were all really focused and looking, and literally a field trip of about 80 kids comes piling through. I mean, come on guys, come on guys, come on guys, and the most repeated statement was, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And our kids were sat on the floor in front of something, taking learning something. And so that's the difference in elementary. That's why we call it a going out. The kids know that it has to come from where they are.
It's that division of labor too. So then again, as they experience with the report, being able to delegate and them all having different ways that they contribute to the success of that report, that comes to a going out too. So you may have an individual who they've ridden public transportation quite a bit in their life. And they're able to sit down with their peers and say, yeah, within each bus, there is a pamphlet, and it tells you the bus route, and this is how you're able to take account of the times and the different streets. And I had a group of children that were working with circumference of circles. So they were out measuring tires, they were out looking for large vehicles to be able to measure the largest circles and be able to develop the circumference and area. They made a giant one, and then they wanted to figure out how to laminate it. So then they had to find out where in the city was a place that could handle the lamination of such a large circle. And then they had to figure out how were they going to get to this space to be able to do this lamination. And then while they were going there, taking the bus routes, of course there's adult accompaniment. It's like, where are we going to have lunch? And at that point in time, it's like they stopped and they had their picnic because the midpoint was the state capitol. So they had a picnic on the lunch, went to the lamination place, delivered them their large circle to be able to laminate, and then come back. That was probably about 2 to 3 weeks in planning on their part, because we really do, systemically go through each of the different things to consider. And what might happen if this occurs? And what would you need to have on you so that this could be as successful as possible? So that's the planning and preparation for the going out that the elementary child is able for. And that all started with you all, with your child, even in the youngest children's community, preparing them to be able to go out of the home and make sure that they've got their jackets, their lunchbox, everything that they needed so that they could be successful and safe as they left the family home. So thank you for all that preparation. And now we're just continue to stand upon your shoulders in that work and the child's increasing independence.
What other questions do you guys have? Sure.
Do you guys give out homework for an elementary?
That's a great question. I'll let you guys answer that one, sure.
Sure. No. There's like Montessori homework. So we hear all the time about children who have their play dates with one another, and they go and they write a play, or they do a research, or they do a presentation in that way. We're able to give some guidance in terms of ways to be able to support your child with like math, facts, or reading, but there is no consistent or like formal homework that's given. We've got lots of different ideas. We want the children to be creative. We also want them to be able to experience some boredom at times and to be able to wonder.
We're able to get a lot done during the classroom, but also as they get older, they're introduced to like time limits and how to manage. I mean, throughout they're learning how to manage their time, but it's not like they walk out of here never knowing what a deadline is or knowing what time parameters are. We have lots of those, and as they get older, they understand those things, studying for a spelling bee that's going to happen in the classroom, or getting ready for Shake Hands with History. It's a project that is going to be in March, so they have to do some research and get that. So they learn all of that time management stuff and deadlines and things like that, but we don't assign homework.
When your child's on the younger side, first coming into elementary, the conversations and communication with the guides are very, very important. You'll learn a lot from your child where they'll start reading things out loud, or they'll be looking around the room and they'll start talking about a wonderful acute angle or obtuse angle, or they may start to talk about nouns or verbs. That's all your clue that's what the child has been working on. And sometimes there's not necessarily like the context for you all to have, but that's usually, I think, how it comes out at home, is they'll talk about their researches, or all of a sudden they'll just start talking with you about the photosynthesis of a plant. And that's your clue. It's like, oh, this is what you've been discussing and kind of mulling over. What else?
We're going to, go ahead.
You mentioned the kind of butterfly to caterpillar, butterfly, and in my case, Zachary had been in Cynthia's class. This is his 4th year.
Yep.
Say he's a butterfly is probably an understatement,
Uh-huh.
and I have a feeling that he's going to get smacked in the head a little bit when he's now the youngest kid, right?
Yeah.
He's he's very confident. He's going to show up, and now he's used to teaching. He's been the big kid now for a while. What should we be aware of as parents for those early days when a Zachary or someone else comes home? What do you often see in children's emotional reactions, and how should we be aware of that?
That's a great segue. Actually, that's my very last section, is like things to keep in mind. So first of all, they're going from the big fish in the small pond to be the little fish in the big pond, right? That can feel intimidating to some. Some have no problem with it at all. And remembering that that transition is going to be different for everyone. There's a few things we've seen year after year after year that we can guarantee you. Here's one of them, right? Remember that they're socially motivated. They're really socially motivated. It's more about their friends than you. I promise there will be a day they come home and they tell you absolutely everything that every single person's done in that classroom, and you say, what do you do? And they're going to say, nothing. I didn't do anything. And that's because that's not where their brain is, right? And so there's good ways, your teachers have great ways to like how to initiate a conversation about what they're actually doing. And I don't think, there are moments that can feel like they're getting smacked in the head, but they're little. I mean, mostly they don't. We really do a great thing. The first thing they're going to get in the late spring, once their classroom's been determined, is a letter from a child in that class they're moving into, inviting them in and saying, I'm going to be your mentor. And so like there's that nice connection. And those are usually third years, they are going into their last year in the classroom. And so they will help with that. That's number one. Number two is the socially motivated thing. They're going to tell you everything. The other thing too is that they're going to explain things and conflicts. Like they're going to come home and they're going to tell you about this huge conflict that happened that me and my friend, and we didn't get along, and then, I said he was wrong, and he told me to go away, and it's going to be like a 25-minute description of about a 4.5-second interaction. And it's true, because they want to hear what your reaction is, and the best reaction to that is like, wow, what did you guys do next? And what did you do next? And what did you do next? Because somewhere at the end of that is like, oh, no, we were fine. Like, we went out and played then, and we were on the playground, we had lunch together, but they're only going to tell you about the dramatic part of it because they want to know how you feel about that. And you have to remember that as an adult, like, okay, this is that thing that Maura told me, was that I'm going to get all the drama right now and kind of get to the end of that.
You'll get what's most emotional. And
You'll
what
get
the
what's
children
most
will always return to you with to
Yeah.
be able to process is what was most emotional to them during the day. And they come to you to be able to process because, your children are just as intelligent as any of us. What we have is we've got years and years of experience. So they come home to you to be able to process what was kind of confusing and most emotional.
And the teacher, if it is something that you have to talk to the teacher about, if you get to a point and you're like, I need a little more information, don't be surprised if they'll say, what? They had a great day. I never saw them upset at all because they're processing it for themselves, The other thing that I would say to be ready for is that right now they're at the height of these pieces of work that they've learned and mastered, and they can write and they can read and they can produce stuff. And remember, beginning lessons in the elementary like this, there's no paper and pen follow-up. Right? It could be an experiment with a plant, it could be a drawing, etc. And that's at the beginning. They're going to read, they're going to write, they're going to work on those skills. All that skill practice still continues. But remember, in the beginning, they're building up that bank of lessons. When your 3-year-old started in our primary, they didn't bring home things to you to show you. Now they're starting to show you things I'm writing, etc. And remember that there's a little bit of that going on too. Lots of lessons that don't involve a pencil. Right? But gets their brain ready for all these things that they're going to do. A lot of the paper and pencil stuff you do see is that research, right? They want to learn more things and they learn how to write a report and research things. Go ahead.
You mentioned earlier that in the spring they'll receive an invitation. Post Oak has a really beautiful practice as well where they also develop there's a mentee and a mentor process. So when your child comes into the classroom, they're paired. First of all, the entire community is prepared to be able to welcome their newest members, but then there are specific children who have been paired to be able to host, to be able to help invite your child in, and to be able to orient them to the room. So that's really been beautiful, the way that I've seen individuals and then also whole communities be able to welcome those newest members. And they take that with a great level of pride. Also, just within those first few weeks, because of how much newness they're taking in, I would just be prepared and have a snack on hand when you pick them up. Your children hold themselves together tremendously throughout the day through so much newness, and within their comfort of your vehicle or home, that's when they can kind of just release and let that all out and you will be who holds that for them. So I would just have that food ready just for nourishment, just space. They may be exhausted from the newness, so just ample rest too.
I'm going to stop stop right here for a second. I'm going to ask the people here in the audience who have those cards, think about what you wrote about goals. Is what we described something that can get them towards those goals? Is that a good place on the path to that goal? And then if there are questions that didn't get answered, please, by all means, email Joseph, set up an appointment to come and observe. We're going to say goodbye to our folks on the live stream. And any of you who are here and have just about 10 more minutes, we can have you guys peek into an elementary classroom if you'd like to do that. Joseph and I are able to do that. Okay? All right. We're off? Okay, good. Now we're... Okay.